going, folks? We're back again, locally sourced, and it's the Thursday show. It's the live show. Really excited today. We're just gonna we're gonna depart from politics for a little bit, which is like, well, a little bit anyways. We might talk about it some too, but you know, only touching on it. Today we've got on Mikey Weil. We're gonna be mostly talking about dealing with jobs right now, dealing with finding work, preparing yourself for what we're dealing with currently. Wonky job market. States are reopening despite the fact that coronavirus is still totally rocking. And I did just want to shout out that as a complete side note, before we kick this off, that this morning, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime, was arrested by the FBI in New Hampshire, and she's going to be going before a federal court today. So for anybody that didn't see that yet, it's pretty epic, and that's a really big deal, and definitely something that more folks are going to be talking about going down the line. So like, I hope everybody pays attention to that. With that said and out of the way, I'm gonna bring on Mikey now, and and we'll just get started. Mikey, how are you, man?
What's going on? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, man. It is indeed a happy Thursday. We had like a whole bunch of rain out here for the past few days, and it's just been like thunderstorms rolling. So it's like it's nice to have the sun back and our grass can finally grow. How's Colorado?
I was just gonna say I miss rain. I'm coming back actually in a couple months. We're moving back at the end of August because we have a baby on the way now, and you know, all of our family's
Congratulations,
there.
by the way.
Thank you. Exciting and scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're moving back at the end of August, trying to find a place to live somewhere in New England. But there's like no rain out here. It rains for about 5 minutes and then it's done. So I'm not looking forward to the humidity and wind chill and bugs, but I'm looking forward to the ocean. You know,
Yeah.
went to school on the ocean. I grew up going to the ocean, and now I'm in the most landlocked state. So that part that's been tough. We're trying to like settle down right on the beach somewhere so we can make up for all of our lost time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's gonna be nice to have you back in the neighborhood. Like you're still doing comedy and stuff.
Yeah, still doing a little bit of comedy. We've done a couple online Zoom shows. Me and my comedy partner Bobby. We have his last name's Love, my last name's Wheel. So we have a little thing called Love Wheel Presents,
Nice.
where we've been putting on just some shows in Denver for a couple like local charity and organizations. We just put on a show for a Democratic House of Representative candidate out here.
Nice.
So we've been doing a lot of that, and we put on 3 or 4 shows so far, and it's amazing. Like we put on an open mic for a year here, and we had like one person show up every night, like that wasn't a comic, and then we turned to Zoom, and we get like 40 to 50 audience people. So it's like, even when the world goes back to normal, why go and try to do things in public anymore? You can have people
Right,
from all over just watch online.
Yeah, that the classic girl sweatshirt, I don't like shit, I don't go outside thing.
Yep. I don't like going outside. I mean, no comic likes to go outside or just talk to people. So it's kind of nice just doing it online. I can, you know, hang out with my dog still. So.
Right. Well, the thing that I found like really funny, right, is because the select board here in Peterborough, they started doing, they like would do their select board meetings on Zoom, and they'd broadcast it directly to Facebook, and all of a sudden you see like attendance for the actual event, like you've got maybe like 60 people watching, whereas before you'd have 6 people in the gallery, because it was like, who's, you know, how many parents in town can like swing going out, like when they've got to take care of their kid and they got to cook dinner to go to a select board meeting. But if it's like, if you just put it on your laptop at the corner of, you know, the counter or whatever, and just let it bump, all of a sudden you've got a whole lot more public engagement. So it's like, yeah, it's a weird line we walk, man, with the internet. Like, you know,
and you're seeing people perform for cheaper. I mean, like, you're seeing big comics do streams online, and like normally it would cost Maria Bamford. Unfortunately, we had a show, I think, so I didn't get to watch it, but she did an online show recently, and it was $15. So I mean, like, to go see her somewhere else can be more expensive because you're dealing with the venue, you're dealing with the booking agent, you're dealing with all that. When
Right.
they're doing live streams online, like everybody gets a chance. It's not sold out. You're
Hmm.
not getting people scamming and buying the tickets to sell more. Like anybody, any place in the world can just watch the show for a much better cost. I mean, it's a kind of nice. I don't. I mean, I see things staying online for a while, even after things kind of calm down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. You know, it's like this like we might not be totally aware of like the freedoms that this has created within culture, you know what I mean, like, and
Hmm.
like the long-term effects of that, like, um I mean, I don't know, I guess like I'm thinking about when I was, you know, when we were in college, right, like that was sort of like the heyday of piracy, like internet
Hmm.
piracy. And so there was so much that we like were able to just get and get access to that like completely changed the game on how a lot of those companies have had to switch up licensing and stuff like that to make sure that they don't get pirated like crazy, you know,
Hmm.
like, so it's like even though that era is gone, and you know we live in like the world of the streaming service now where people don't necessarily have the files, they just access them through an account. It's like that totally changed the way we deal with media in general. And like I wonder how this condition, right, you know, like not to, you know, not to equate being locked in our houses to being able to pirate software on the internet, but like because they're not even remotely the same. But I wonder if it'll have that sort of same like cultural zeitgeist effect of really like shifting the way things operate.
Yeah, it's just at your fingertips. I mean, we went to Durango, Colorado a week or two ago just to get away, and we found this big lake there. And like I said, you know, whenever there's a body of water in Colorado, which is very rare, you go swimming in it because you don't see it that often. So
Right.
I saw this body of water, this lake that we were at called Velocito. I went swimming in it, and then I uploaded a video onto my phone into iMovie, and then I downloaded the Baywatch theme song to my phone from iTunes, and I added it to my phone, and I made a video in like 5 seconds of me swimming in the water to the Baywatch theme. And it's just how easy things are these days and how everything is right at your fingertips. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's just too easy. I love it.
Yeah, I know. It's really like, I mean, it's what makes me doing this whole thing possible in a lot of ways, you know, just like the like I can just kind of like pick it up and make it go. Like if you know, if somebody had told me, "Oh yeah, you'd be able to just like run a whole like broadcast show by yourself from your computer," I'd like, you
Yep.
know, even 5 years ago I've been like, you kidding me, like,
Yeah.
much less when I was in college. So it's like, you know, it's just wild how like stuff like that changes over time.
It's no longer the days that you have to like only go to LA or New York to start like, you know, an interview show or a talk show. You can do it from anywhere. I mean, I've seen people turn their bathtubs into soundproof rooms with mattresses.
Yep.
You can take those Dunkin' Donuts cup holders and you can put them all over your wall and make it soundproof. And I mean, people don't have to move, you know, people don't have to do all these crazy things to try to make it anymore. It's just right there. I mean, it's,
Right.
I haven't done it yet, but it's easy apparently.
Yeah, yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. No, I know exactly what you mean. Well, I mean, hey, maybe this is a good segue into like, okay, so we're talking about how like the whole world has shifted because we're now totally on the internet, and you know there's a lot of job loss going on right now. And you have spent the past, how many years now have you been working as a recruiter? I don't want to
About
like,
7 years. Yeah, 7 years and some months, couple months.
okay, yeah, so like,
Yeah.
so it sounds like you might have some insight into dealing with the whole world of looking for work at this particular time. And I just like, if you want to just like swing into that, you know, I don't necessarily know what the best place to start on it is. So I would just like put it to you, like where, like, how do folks deal with this, especially in a very, very corporatized and like systematic world of employment and labor?
Yeah. So I'll give kind of like my background. Like you, I studied film in college. Went to a small college. I studied film and creative writing, and trying to get a job out of college with those things is damn near impossible. So it took me a few years to find something solid. Eventually, an old roommate told me his company was looking to hire a sourcer. And then I found my way into recruiting that way, and I've been in it ever since. So, as somebody who has struggled in between jobs or before I got into this environment, like I love just being able to help other people find jobs because I understand that struggle. I understand how hard it is. What I do in recruiting, it's called sourcing. It's kind of like, it's kind of the initial part of the recruiting function. So instead of doing a lot of phone work and interviews and background checks and onboarding and on sites, all that kind of thing, those things, I just kind of build pipelines, find passive candidates, candidates who are actively applying for a job. What I do is, I find people who aren't listing themselves open to new opportunities, aren't looking for something, and try to sell them, on coming over to the company I'm working for. At all times, 70% of people are open to new job opportunities.
Hmm.
So, that's one thing that, you can kind of work with is try to sell people on a better benefits package, better salary, better growth opportunities. I also do a lot of what we call creeping. So it's a lot of finding people's phone numbers and emails. If somebody is not really responsive on LinkedIn, how's another way that you can, get them to respond to you? Some people are okay with text as an initial outreach for a job. Some like it more after you kind of start that conversation. But that's what I've been doing is sourcing. And I guess it's kind of ironic that I'm on here now talking about this because I'm not working right now either. I'm currently furloughed from my job. So I'm looking for something as well and kind of using my own tips and tricks to find stuff. But it's hard right now. It's hard. I mean, like you had mentioned, I know New Hampshire, I know Colorado. People who are unemployed right now, which is millions and millions of people, are getting those things from the unemployment office that are saying, "Hey, you need to, start showing us that you're applying for jobs." Back in the
Right.
day, if you were unemployed before COVID, every week you had to be like, "I'm applying, I'm interviewing, I'm doing this." COVID, they were a little more lax about it because they were just like, everybody's going through this right now. We need some time to relax, to breathe, to get tested for COVID or whatever. So right now, everybody's looking again, and it's a very tough time to be looking. But I'm always posting stuff on my LinkedIn. I'm always open to networking with people, and I
Hmm.
guess that's why I came on here is to kind of provide some tips and tricks. Basically, a lot of things that I can kind of talk about are things that people don't think about that are very simple. I mean, I'm not going to teach you, how to, I guess
How to get a
hack
job.
into
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm gonna yeah, I won't be held responsible for that part, but I
Sure.
can I can I can start, one of the most simple things I say is like, if you want to work for Apple, don't just apply for jobs at Apple. Connect to the recruiter at Apple, send them a message, say, the one tip I would always say when talking to a recruiter is never start off and say, "What do you have for me?" Because they have so many
Okay.
people coming to them. Like what I would do is find a job on the website, apply to it, copy and paste that rec number and say, "Hey, I just applied for Rec 48527, the software engineer role in Austin. Here's my resume, here's my phone availability, here's why I think I'm a good fit for the job. I'd love to hear more. Let me know when we can set up time." That way,
Sure.
you're really like getting in front of the recruiters. They have 100 people applied for that job, but you're being proactive. You're showing them that you want that job. You're giving them the phone availability, and like that's the right way to do it. And a lot of people will say like, "I can just connect with recruiters," and I'm like, yes, that's what they're for. And the,
Okay.
the thing
Yeah.
too is the thing is that not every company out there, I mean, big and small companies don't always have 1,000 applicants applying for a job. That's why there are sourcers. Sourcers are going out there and we're finding people for those hard to fill roles. Recruiters are, depending on company, they're dealing with 1,000 applicants that have come in. We're going out and trying to find that perfect person who has not applied, doesn't know the job is there, but is that perfect fit and meets all those requirements.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I mean, I think I I mean, like, something that I always kind of wonder about myself, right, is like how much does having a college education affect that versus how much like applied skills work? Like, I know a lot of people that have incredible skill, but they might not have the education or like credential, like just that like formal piece of paper to back it
Mm-hmm.
up. And I'm wondering how much, like, from your perspective, how much does that affect things? Like, is initiative and merit like actually a significant part of that process, or like does it rely on credentialing?
Companies are easing up on that. Companies are understanding how expensive it is to go to college these days and pay back colleges. So, a lot of companies are starting to understand that. There are some companies that are rooted in, hey, our last 10, trying to think of a specific job role here, our last 10 accountants here. I mean, accountant, you need certain certificates anyway and degrees, but our last 10 people in this job all had bachelor's degrees and they're doing well here.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to hire anybody without a bachelor degree because I don't believe in those people can do the same thing. So you do have some companies who are very strict in that. Other companies are starting to open up their doors a little more. And like you said, there are other skills that can make up for it. You'll read a job description that says, we need somebody with 7 years of engineering experience and a bachelor's degree. If you
Hmm.
don't have a bachelor's degree, we'd like 10 years of engineering experience. Because they're saying, hey, if you don't have a degree, we get it. You might not be able to afford it. Maybe you got a job out of high school because you were top 10 in your class and you created an app and Apple gave you a job offer. Like
Hmm.
maybe that, that happens. So a lot of company will say if or that kind of statement. So we'd like you to have this. If not, if you have other things that make up for it, somebody might say, we want you to have these 10 programs. But if you don't have a bachelor's degree, if you have these 15 skills and programs, then we're going to bring you, on board. You're just as equally credible as the other kind of people.
Right, sure. And like, and how, like, like when people say, like, I want 10 years of experience, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, again, like, I wonder how much that, like, how much that plays a role in like that specific number of 10 years, like, because I know that that can be a deterrent. Like, I've genuinely seen jobs where I'm like, well, I could do this, but they're literally asking me to have experience in an industry that I'm applying to right now to try and get experience. So you're kind of in this like this catch 22 loop
Mm-hmm.
situation where it's like, well, I need experience, but I can't get any job because they won't give me any, like, they won't take me without experience, like, so how do you interact with that, like, conundrum that certain workers face when they're trying to, like, maybe get into a new field that they haven't worked in before, but they know they have, like, very applicable skills that can be easily trained or transferred within to that field? I'm just sort of like curious as to that.
That's the biggest running joke as a job applicant is like an entry level job out of college requires 10 years out of college experience for an entry level job. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the biggest running joke. And you see that quite often, and it's really crazy. I would say, especially with COVID, a lot of people are learning how to make sourdough bread right now. There's so many free classes or cheaper classes or classes you can find on Groupon. There's so many different resources of things that you can do. I've been learning Photoshop through a couple different classes. I'm going to start learning web design through classes that cost me like $29 for, you know, um, 10 classes. So there's other ways that you can kind of go around maybe lacking that experience. So if somebody is looking for, 10 years in food manufacturing and you only have, experience in making cars or something like that, see if you can pull something else out that might kind of help you out. Like food, there's a lot of quality regulations around that. So you need to really know if, when you're making cars, of course, you need to have the safety of a tire or safety of an engine. When it's food, you can't have salmonella or anything getting into that kind of food. So, if you can maybe take a course or something in your free time and add that onto your resume to say that I do know of these things, you're not going to have to train me completely. I am
Sure.
knowledgeable about some of these things, or try to pull something from your past. Maybe you didn't do it now, but you did it 6 years ago. Talk about how it's still relevant. I always tell people, when my kid's growing up, I'm going to be like, start a blog at a young age, start a
Hmm.
blog, start talking about stuff, start an app, start a YouTube channel, because like that's what can really help you get jobs, just talking about your knowledge. I mean, it's very tough when you apply, people just see a resume a lot of the times
Hmm.
and they're going, this person is not as good as that person on a resume. Let's put this resume in the background. Try to have other things that can make you stand out. Try to have
Yeah.
that LinkedIn profile that says on there what you're good at doing. Type a good cover letter. There was one graphic designer and web designer who created a website where it was Super Mario. It was like a knockoff Super Mario, and each level was the guy's education, his interests, his experience, his different companies, and each level did that, and he had hundreds of job offers. I mean, some people will get a pizza delivered to a company and put their resume in the top of the pizza. Like
Yeah.
people do very creative things. Somebody else put their resume on a chocolate bar and delivered it to an HR manager that said on their LinkedIn that they like chocolate. So I mean, it's really about getting creative and innovative and not just hitting apply and moving on and saying, okay, let's hope to hear back from them.
Right. Well, and I think something else that I take away from this too is like it's important to like express to people like, okay, in order to actually navigate this sort of like, I mean, I talk about like, I mean, the title of this episode is navigating the PMC hiring process, but like I genuinely think that we are like, I mean, no matter where you're at, you're pretty much like required to adhere to the systems and tools that professional managerial class uses to decide who gets what job, right? So in that sense, the like I guess like the mission here is in many ways to teach people how they are going through that so that we can then like internalize those processes ourselves and learn how to play the game back, right? Like
Hmm.
so just as they're trying to seek out an individual, like you like it's on us to do the research to seek out those bosses and to know what they want and to know what they want to hear, you know what I mean? Like if you're going through a grant writing process, it's like study the foundation's language, you know what I mean? Like try to use the same words that they use, like try and like play within the construct that they've already set up. So it's like research, like genuinely
Hmm.
research the actual people that are doing the hiring process or the managing process of the job that you're seeking to get into, right? Like and then also it like what it sounds like is to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like learn to identify soft skills. Like your example was quality control, like understanding that quality control as a skill can exist both in like a mechanical or agricultural or whatever process. Like that's not something that's unique to any one manufacturing or production field, right? Like quality control
Hmm.
happens everywhere.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
even, you know, like pharmaceuticals, whatever, right? It's all a big part of that process. So the idea is to seek out like what are those sort of like underlying soft people skills that we each have that like, oh, I know this is what my friends like about me, or like I know that I'm able to do this when I'm in a conversation with somebody. Like take a look at those aspects of ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
and learn how to talk about them within the context of what a recruiter or a sourcer would be looking for when trying to, you know, hire for Apple.
Yeah. Yeah, I would
So
say, every job description is different. So if
mhm.
you're applying for a software engineer role for Apple and it's a senior role, that could require different things than a senior role for Microsoft or for Amazon or for anything like that. So the biggest thing is like people always say like, oh, cater your cover letter to what the company you're applying for is.
Mhm.
I would say cater your resume for the same thing. Have
Right.
50 different types of resumes. So if you're applying for a job at Amazon, and they want the bachelor's in engineering, 5 years in this, 3 years in that, you might not have something on your resume that you did in the past.
Mhm.
And now they're not going to see that in your resume. So make sure you update your resume for that job, for that
Right.
company. Of course, never lie about it, but
Right.
people always rush to put their resume in one page, which I don't agree with. If
Okay.
you're a few years out of college, maybe, but eventually do what you need to do. But yeah, that's a big thing is changing your resume for every single thing. So if a company says, oh, we need somebody who's really good at, front end and the display of web development, and you're a little more back end, you do more of that kind of back end data kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I would say, maybe you applied for a role that was back end. So you only have that on there. Now you're applying for a front end role. Talk about when you have used that. Talk about have you built apps, just consulting with different people? Maybe you built an app for your parents or something. Maybe you built an app just for fun. Put that on there. Talk about how you've used that front end experience. Look at the 5 different requirements that they have on there
Mhm.
and try to get those onto your resume. Not only that, but the preferred section, you're going to have a lot of hiring managers who are like, I need all 5 of the requirements and I want 4 out of 10 of the preferred.
Mhm.
Like try to get those preferred on that resume for that job as well. That's such
Right.
like a key thing to do is to cater each resume. And if you really can't make your resume pop, that's why it's so good to connect with recruiters to really show
Sure.
them why you are good with that.
Right.
So I have, what we do in sourcing is called Boolean. There's a guy named George Boolean. He created this mathematical equation in the 1800s. Now we use it to find stuff on the deep, dark parts of the internet. So Boolean is using things like and, or, not, asterisks, things like that. And basically what it does is it just kind of helps you connect with people. So there was something I'd sent over, let me see.
Sure.
And there's kind of a Boolean string that you can use. Yeah, I don't have it on here. Let me see. Basically, I use Boolean for my search, but then I also use it in like my everyday life as well.
Sure.
So I use it to find things on the internet. If I'm trying to find a video game, I can find it cheaper than a lot of people. I can find it more locally. I can find it new, or I can knock out all of the used results if I don't want those. So yeah, on slide 10, on slide 10 of the thing I sent over, this just kind of shows you how to find different recruiters that exist on your LinkedIn. So it's using that kind of Boolean string. And what I did was I put that in there so you can copy and paste it. Basically, a big thing to know is like when you're connecting with people, hiring managers are not recruiters. Hiring
Okay.
managers are dealing with all of the internal things at that company.
Sure.
So they're really dealing with like, the company ethics, all these things, salaries and bonuses. Don't really reach out to those people. Reach out to anybody who has a name, talent acquisition, recruiter, recruitment, recruiting, sourcer, sourcing. Those are the people to connect with. So if
Hmm.
you were to type this search bar into your LinkedIn at the top, and if you even want to pop on your LinkedIn and type in something like that, I can kind of show you how you can find the people that you're connected to who would be able to kind of help you get into that, their company.
Sure.
So
Yeah. I'm
basically,
gonna stay off my own LinkedIn for right now, just for today's show.
fair.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But no. I like the networking thing does make sense, and I think this is totally right on when it comes to like understanding how to use the tool itself. Like I think like
Mhm.
that's what I really like this, that you're, this is the way, this is something that you're sharing with us, is like that, like knowing how to game that search engine tool, like.
It's so simple. You can do it on mobile. Definitely download Indeed and LinkedIn on your phone, as well as having them bookmarked or whatnot on your computer. I mean, I know social distancing is kind of big now, but if you are going to the grocery store, if you have to go to the DMV, having them on your phone, you can apply to a bunch of jobs directly from your phone. I mean, you can literally be in line at the grocery store and be three away from the cashier, and you can apply to 15 jobs really quickly. And then you
Mhm.
get emails and you go home confirming them. That way you can kind of track those jobs a little bit better. But
Right.
basically, all you would do is you would take this string, you would put it at the top of your LinkedIn in that search bar, you would hit enter, and then you can go down to first connections. So, with my search, I think, I had 544 people that are first connections. I'm
Mhm.
sure I should have more than that. But basically, now I can go through all of those 544 people, and when you're connected to somebody on LinkedIn as a first connection, you get their email automatically. So maybe
Right.
it's a work email, maybe it's a personal email. You can also send them a free message. So it works just like Facebook chat. You can send them a message on LinkedIn. Recruiters, we're on LinkedIn all day, we're on LinkedIn all night. We're probably going to respond to you, as long as, there's some kind of fit. That's a big thing to know.
Right.
If you don't have any experience and you want to be a software manager at Google, that recruiter is going to try to find the time to say like this isn't a fit, but they're also dealing
Right.
with a lot of other people who are seeing the better fitting roles that they're matched up with. That's what they're kind of going to respond to. But
Sure.
with this, you can also look at locations. Like for me, we're looking to live maybe in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Portland, Maine. I can go under locations on here. I can try to find people in that area and say, hey, I'm moving back in a few months. Do you know of any opportunities? Can you tell me more about the market? What would be a good company to look into? And then you also have current companies as a filter. So, say I really, really want to work for, um, you know, uh, Stop and Shop or something like that. I would go onto current companies, I'd type Stop and Shop in there, and I would see if I have any recruiters that I'm connected to. And
Right.
then that way I can automatically reach out to them and kind of start up that conversation. And you can ask them those questions too. Say, hey, I see that you really want 10 years of experience. I only have 7. Could I still be a fit for this role with you looking at my resume? Or do you
Yeah.
have maybe a more junior role? That's such like a big thing, is that like you can go on a website and see the 10 jobs that are posted, but a lot of recruiters, sourcers, especially people who are talent coordinators, they're the ones posting all the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to know what's opening up next week, which job
Right.
just closed and hasn't been posted yet, and you could be the first one in the door. Or they could say, hey, we're only looking for a senior person now. I think we'll probably have a more junior role in a couple weeks. Send me your resume, let me put it in my folder, and then you'll be the first person to know as soon as a better job for you opens up.
Right. That's huge actually, that I think like and I learned this at one point, and I can't remember when or how or what brought it on, but it was like you always want to say like, maybe I'm applying for this job, but please keep my resume on file for other openings or other opportunities. Like, express that you're not just necessarily seeking one job with them, you're seeking a job with their company itself, right? Like that you
Mm-hmm.
would be open to filling different roles and shifting your skills from one position to another, uh, as needed by the company, because it's almost like certain companies will be almost more interested in somebody driven to push for that brand or that product because they care, more than they would be willing to accept somebody with like a sweet resume that is just going to kind of be whatever about it and could easily go
Yeah.
like, because I mean it's like that the former example is like that there's a likely less high turnover rate on that type of an employee, right? Like that type of an employee is maybe more willing to stay for longer, or at the very least is not going to be out seeking something else because they have a different goal in mind when they're there. But yeah.
Passion and dedication, like you said, is huge. I
Right.
mean, if you want to be a salesperson at Apple and you have not been a salesperson at Apple in another city, or you haven't sold direct competitive products, but you have a sales background, talk to them about why you're passionate.
Right.
I've been an Apple person my whole entire life. I have every Apple product. I'll never not have an Apple product.
Yeah.
Talk about how, when your grandma got her first laptop, how you set up everything for her, how
Mm-hmm.
she calls you every night to try to get a new update or to fix a program or fix her wireless internet. Like, provide all of that information somehow in your resume or in your kind of talk with that recruiter that you're networking with. Show them that you're passionate, because if they just take your resume and bring it to the HM and say, hey, this isn't really a great fit, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
But now if they can go and say, hey, this person's driven, they can tell you every CEO of Apple, the history of Apple, they can tell you everything. They're going to go, okay, this person's passionate. They're going to want to show up
Right.
at work. We're going to teach them a few things they don't know. And you know what? That's not a big thing, because we teach that to everybody anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, find somebody who's passionate, because that is like such a big thing that can happen. And like I said, it's all subjective. Every company is a little different, but definitely try this approach really on everybody. And some companies, a recruiter will straight up say, if you want to come work for here in this role, you are going to need this. Unfortunately, the hiring manager, my boss, is not going to budge. Other
Mm-hmm.
times they're going to say, yeah, like, I think you could be good. I'm going to fight for this.
Right.
I've hired people for roles that didn't fit every characteristic that was needed, because there was something else that made them stand out.
Sure.
And a good phone call, if they're good on the phone but they don't have all the right requirements, that's going to be better than somebody who has all the requirements and can't hold a conversation. If they're applying for a supervisor role and they can't have a conversation with you, how are they going to supervise other people? How are they going to train other people? If you can
Right.
get somebody who has a little less experience, but still some of that supervisory, and can really nail a phone interview, that's going to be a good candidate.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a huge point to include in the whole process. I mean, something else that I noticed that you hit on, which I think is really like, I feel like there have been points like I didn't understand it enough. I didn't make a big enough, consideration in my own process at times. But you talk a lot about like the role that good benefits play in a job, and like I'd love to sort of hear you explain that position a little bit, like why benefits are so important.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my mom has always told me that. I've always gone into jobs thinking about that. I mean, I wrote an article on LinkedIn, my most recent one, about this called "Benefits Maketh Job," which I got from Kingsman, one of my favorite movies. Yeah, my dad started his own psychology practice in Peterborough years ago. I mean, years ago, and it didn't come with benefits because it was his own company. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was working, at the school in town, and she had a great set of benefits, and because that, my dad was able to go start that practice. So benefits are such an important thing to factor when you're looking for a new job. So if I'm making 40,000 at my job and I'm applying for a job that pays 42,000, I might not think, hey, that's not worthy of me going there for only a $2,000 more salary.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many different benefits that companies implement these days that you have to factor in. I mean, back in the day, I mean, like when we started kind of work, I've only been out of college 10 years, but back then you had medical, dental, vision, life insurance, 401k. Now you have all these new benefits like unlimited PTO. You have benefits like paternity leave or pet bereavement. You get a new pet, you get a few days off to help get that pet associated, kind of situated into your home. If you have a pet that passes away, we had a dog pass away a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was just as hard, if not harder, than some of my relatives that I've lost or things like that.
Right.
But some companies will say, "We'll see you tomorrow at work." And you're like, "You want me to come in like this tomorrow to work?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
no,
like,
I
do you
need
know
a
what
few
I'm?
days off.
Yeah. Do you know where I'm at right
Like,
now? Like, are you kidding?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you want me to come in and cry for 3 days straight. So, there's so many
Yeah.
things to factor in, like HSA, which is an health spending account, or
Mm-hmm.
FSA, flexible spending account. That's something where a company each quarter might give you $500 to go spend on medication, first aid kits, doctor's appointments. You can put that towards anything. So, for example, say a company is going to put $500 in your FSA every quarter. That's $2,000 they're giving you every year to go to that. So now, hypothetically, you can say that job that is now only $2,000 more,
Mm-hmm.
technically is kind of $4,000 more.
Right.
Because now I'm getting $2,000 more to go to those kind of health things. So some things are financial variables that you can say. Other things like that paternity leave or longer actually paternity leave. I'm having a baby soon. I'm trying to find a company that I can have some time off because that is so valuable. If I find a job that pays a little bit more, but says, hey, we don't have paternity leave here, or you haven't been here long enough, well, now I'm going to be getting no sleep for the first couple months. And I'm going to be trying to handle work, and that's going to be stressful. But a
Right.
company that gives you more of that time to kind of come around and believes in your mental health and believes in time off, that's something that can be really huge to factor in. So, I mean, you have companies that have paid time off to volunteer. Some companies will donate to that place that you're volunteering at.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will offer sabbaticals. I had a friend who was with a company for 6 years and got a month off, paid to go do whatever he wanted. So look for a company that is investing in you.
Mm-hmm.
That is like more important than an overall salary, I would say. And
Sure.
like the biggest thing to stay away from is like, don't get sucked into those companies that have a beer fridge or a pool table in their hallway. Don't get sucked into the companies that have Friday beer nights and stuff like that. Like I had companies like that when I was early out of college, and I was so gung ho about it. And then I realized there's other things that that company was missing. Like really think about the overall benefits, and that is like the really important thing. And compare it to other companies too. Look for companies. Hop on Google and say what companies have the best benefits. There's a million searches, a million results on there. Here are the 10 companies with the best benefits. Find recruiters at those companies and reach out to them and try to see if you can maybe work for one of those companies. Some of the other things in the article I talk about is tuition reimbursement.
Right. That's
some
huge.
companies
That's huge.
some companies will help you with your student loans, which means you might not have to get that second job to pay off those student loans. Other companies are going to help you with tuition reimbursement. So, say you want to get a master's degree, companies really want you to keep excelling at the company and in
Right.
that role. They want you to get better and better. So, if you can go get a master's degree in HR and you're an HR generalist, HR manager, they're going to help you with that. So, a degree that might have been $15,000 now tacked on to your $100,000 bachelor student loan, they
Mm-hmm.
might help pay off half of that. And now that
Right.
$7,500 at that company is now offering to help you with that degree.
Right.
With that, now that's another $7,500 not out of your pocket that you can kind of think of, hey, that's adding more to my kind of overall, I call it compensation package. It's not just the
Sure.
salary variable, but it's just the whole big picture.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because it helps you to sort of familiarize yourself with the concept of like this is a good way for folks who like don't deal with the stock market really at all, because how can they like how do you
Yeah.
touch that? It's a good way to understand a lot of the sort of more intricate economics that go into understanding what like stock traders will do,
Mm-hmm.
where you're talking about like a different type of an asset where it's like, okay, I gotta translate this thing that is like, it's not direct money, but I can absolutely translate it into a monetary concept, and then I can understand it as an asset to me. So then you can
Yep.
kind of reinterpret your overall values or whatever. Something I wanted to ask is sort of like, in your personal experience, how many of the companies that offer these highest quality benefits, like these are great benefits right here, obviously, but my question is like, I mean, if I go out and I hunt for a job locally right now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to see. And what that makes me wonder is like, is this mostly like multinational corporations that are offering these kind of benefits? What's the impetus for offering these benefits all of a sudden? Like, is it truly a worker centric sort of like, we're trying to lift up our middle class type of a perspective, or is it more of like a self-protection measure, like, oh, we now need to start doing this so that we're able to protect our top line
Got to be
profits?
competitive.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's very big, tenured companies that have been around forever that make billions of dollars. And then it's also a lot of startup companies. So that's what you're going to see. A lot
Okay.
of startup companies are going to offer a lot of these kind of benefits because they understand how to be competitive. So if I'm starting my own business that's supposed to compete with a multi-billion-dollar international company,
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're offering tuition reimbursement, matching 401ks, unlimited PTO.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that, hey, people are going to want to work for that big company, but maybe those people might want to come work for us as well if we offer those same sort of benefits. It's not just about the company name. It's not just
Right.
about branding your LinkedIn to say, I worked at the top car manufacturer in the world. I worked for the top um, CRM, customer relationship management company in the world. It's about what they can like offer you. So it's really big companies, and then it's very big starting up companies because companies know that they need to be competitive. One thing I will kind of say is a lot of companies offer great benefits. So like, this whole list of things, I've had a lot of these at companies that I've left in the past. And a lot of people might look at that from an eagle eye view and they might say, why would you leave when you have all of these benefits? I might say, well, I'm being micromanaged in my job, or I'm not really getting to do the exact things that I'm skilled at. I'm more doing other things. So, like, don't be afraid to leave a company because you're going to be leaving great benefits. There's many other companies out there that offer very similar benefits. So, never get too bogged down. I think that's a very
Yeah.
generational thing. Our parents, our grandparents, they got a job in the factory or in the mill or in the, mining. they
Right.
they did that, and they did that until the day they retired
Mm-hmm.
because it had life insurance and it had things for their family at retirement, and it allowed their kids to go to the doctors and the dentist when they needed it. Don't Things are very different these days. There are so many
Sure.
companies that offer these that don't stay in a place. Just like your mental health is such an important factor for me. Your work is 40 hours a week, but it's more than that. I don't
Right.
consider Sunday a weekend because the whole day I'm thinking I have to go back to work tomorrow. If you're
Right.
commuting to work an hour each day, that's going to add on another 10 hours. That's a 50-hour work week. So, like, no matter how great something might be at that role, don't jump ship. Never leave that job and just say, I'm going to go find something else. Spend your free time looking for a new role and then put in your 2 weeks once you have accepted something.
Mm-hmm.
But just make sure that you are happy in that job. I mean, you got to be happy. That is like such a big thing I believe in, where it's like, hey, I need to start looking for something new. I need to
Hmm.
find something equally competitive. I'm very picky in my job search. That's why
Right.
it takes me a while to find something, because I know the things to look out for.
Sure. And that's like, man, that's a really important dynamic that I really like. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think that's like about putting your mental health as a top priority, and like, always make sure that you're not making yourself miserable for the job. And I think, like, maybe it's not the same for Gen Z, you know what I mean? Like the kids under us, because
Yeah.
they were born with the internet already in existence. So this kind of stuff has been getting ripped up, and I think Gen X is a little more loosey goosey about the way they deal with things. But
Yeah.
for us millennials, that we're like that last generation that was sort of getting raised by like the tail end of boomers into like the old side of Gen X, right? Like
Hmm.
this idea that was very much so informed by the generations that preceded them and their parents, of like, you got to go out, you got to get this job, you got to hold that job, like you can't, like,
Work
it's a
80
good
hours a
job.
week if you need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to
Yep.
grind. You got to do this stuff. And it's like what you're talking about sounds like we as like millennials, sort of being one of the final inheritors of this particular mindset, need to be like deconstructing that, or like undoing that programming of like, this is how you engage in a job search. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you look at getting employment in the first place, or this is how you look at employment once you have it. And that, like, no job is worth your sanity, basically.
What does every elderly person say when they're on their deathbed? Two things. I wish I spent more time with my family, and I wish I traveled more. And it's like, our parents' generation, every other generation after that was like, hey, I'm going to just work. I'm going to work and provide. I'm going to work so I can save and have retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still do those things today while staying sane, but that's kind of what they grew up knowing. And like you're saying, we're the first kind of generation to say, you know what? I think I'm going to work just 40 hours a week, just 40. I
Right.
interviewed for a job a few years ago that was, they wanted me there every Saturday for the first year and to stay an hour or two late every single night that I was working there. And I was like, you know what? I can find something else. If I
Right.
can't, maybe I'll come back. But there's other things that literally, you have some managers that at 5 o'clock will look at you and say, Carter, why are you still here? Go home, like be with your kids. Or like,
Right.
hey, take a Friday off. Like you need to take a Friday off.
Mm-hmm.
Unlimited PTO is such a great thing, because as long as the thing about unlimited PTO is this: if you abuse it, you're going to lose your job. It's that simple.
Right.
But if you don't abuse it, then you can take more than that 3 weeks off, or those, 40 hours the first year off. You
Mm-hmm.
can, really utilize it and say, hey, you know what? It's not just I take vacation or I take a sick day. It can just be a personal day or a me
Right.
day. I'm going to go lay in a park for a day because this week's been really stressful. And if you find a company that believes in your mental health and says, go for it, that is fine. That's a company that you're going to want to stay with. Companies are going to offer this because you are going to stay there a lot longer knowing these things. The
Sure.
companies that are rooted in their old ways of, hey, when you start here, you get 1 week of vacation, and every year you get an extra day. Those people are not going to probably be around and be pulling in new people all the time, because there are other companies that offer 3 weeks of vacation right away, or
Right.
a month of vacation. And sick days. Sick days are a huge thing. I worked a job that didn't offer any benefits for the first year. So when people were sick, they came into the office, because it was either I stay home and I don't get paid, or I come into the office sick and I get my money.
Right.
So like I did not last long at that company.
Yeah.
And there are companies that will help pay for your yoga classes, that will bring in a yoga instructor, that will have a gym in there, that will
Mm-hmm.
provide free personal trainers. Like that is like such a big benefit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's huge. And I think there's like, I mean, and granted, I sort of like to wrap it around for anybody that's like, okay, well, we're out here talking about some pretty heavy capitalist stuff, and I've actually been pretty like openly critical of capitalist conventions on this channel. But what I think, like, when I listen to this, right, it's like, you gotta like we need to understand that, like, from a more left wing or socialist perspective on markets, right? Like, if you even look at like um Bhaskar Sankara on Jacobin's channel, he'll talk about how, he doesn't believe in abolishing markets, right? Like like this idea of like, saying, oh, well, we want to see the government take over healthcare and we want to see a single payer healthcare system, right? Like that's like, in a way that's meant to alleviate and help markets, and it's also meant to empower the worker, right? Like, and so what we're talking about here is a subset of like, this is how the industries that exist within the market structure that shouldn't be socialized, right? Like, this is the type of model that you want to see them learn and practice as we evolve the way the labor force is, the way it operates, and what what the labor force ultimately feels like they deserve, right? Like, there's like so much of what you're saying here. I gotta ask, like, how many people even feel like they deserve these benefits in the first place? Like, how much of a role does like not even feeling like that's part of the equation come into this? Like, do you find people are shocked by like, oh, I can ask for that? Like, that's really something that I should be demanding? Like, how, like, what's your take on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think people don't value their worth quite often. Right now, it's incredibly hard to find a job. There's a ton of people laid off, fired, furloughed, whatever. It's very hard to find something. So if you can, you have a little savings, you stick it out to find something, really great. Maybe you might not be able to, and that is all right for the time being, and then you can keep looking. But people don't always value their worth, and I think that that's where networking with colleagues and former colleagues is so important. I mean, I recently reached out to just somebody that I know from the sourcing community to ask what salary that I maybe should be looking for. Ask other people before you start a job and say, hey, how does this look? Do you think that I should be asking for more? Do you think that I should be, asking for something a little bit higher? Or do you think I'm right where I should be? I would say the tough thing with Google is, people don't go to WebMD anymore as much to look at something that might be on their arm or something, because it's just going to say you have cancer. People will go to a friend who might be a doctor, or they might go to, a friend who has some kind of medical experience as an EMT, and they'll say, hey, can you tell me about this? There's a billion things on the internet pointing in a different direction. It's the same thing with a job. There's salary estimators online, there's things like that online. Just kind of network with the people that know you, that know that, have left that company that you're looking to leave. See where they went, see what they are now getting. Say, hey, I was in the same position as them, I have the same years as them here. I would like to kind of try to shoot for those same kind of things. It's
Yeah.
tough right now. It's very tough and competitive. And that's another reason why all the big companies are not always going to, have all of the applicants. Because, if a big company has an open position, there's a million people applying to them. Try applying for the smaller companies, because people are not applying for that.
Right.
You might not have that branded name on your LinkedIn, but you're going to still have maybe the same kind of pay. You might be able to implement new things to that company because they're a little bit newer.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to bring new things to the table. You might be able to get promoted faster. Working for a startup is like such a risky thing that
Right.
either the company tanks or you become the VP of marketing because you started there as the first marketing person
Right.
and you have
Yeah.
amazing stocks. So it's like so many options to weigh and so many things to look at. This benefits thing, I think I have like 25 things on there. At the end, I say, don't look for a company that has all of them. That's going to be tough to find.
Mm-hmm.
Really just look for some that have ones that are important to you. I'm not planning on going back to school really anytime soon. So like tuition reimbursement, if I see a company has that, but they don't have, paternity leave, I'm going to be looking more at paternity leave, because over the next few years, I'm going to have a baby that I'm going to be raising. I'm not going to have time to go back to school. So that's not the most important factor for me at this time. Kind
Right.
of look at what is important to you. I would say that's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, the leveraging your network is just the biggest thing you can do. Is to kind of transition here. Referrals are how you get jobs today, and that's pretty much the answer, I would say, for the most part. So if
Yeah.
I know somebody at a company in Peterborough and they're hiring for somebody, and you apply and you don't know that person and you have a better resume than me, I might get that job over you.
Right.
Because why are they going to bring in Carter, who they don't know, who sure says he's an audio engineer on his resume, and I'm sure he's good at it? Why are they going to bring in Carter, who they don't know, who sure says he's an audio engineer on his resume, and I'm sure he's good at it? And I'm sure he's good at it? Why are they going to bring in Carter, who they don't know, who sure says he's an audio engineer on his resume, when somebody can say, hey, my friend Mikey, he's working as a marketing person, but he's been doing this on the side. My band plays in town. He
Right.
runs everything there. They're going to go, all right, well, I trust my employee who's kicking butt here and has done so well here.
Right.
I trust him. I don't want to have to interview Carter 10 times to see if he's going to be a good fit and risk it. I'm going to bring this guy. So that's why, a big thing I say is if you're working at a company, that company furloughed you right now, go on LinkedIn and see every other person who you worked with and see where they are at now.
Right.
Because a big thing is if a company hires 10 people from another company and all 10 of those people brought over amazing skills and has really leveraged that company, they want to bring more people from that company. They
Right.
see that success.
Right.
So
Well, and
referrals, so huge these days.
yeah, and I think something else to like that sticks out to me too is this like this concept of like, yeah, you're using LinkedIn as a tool, right? And I mean like I only use LinkedIn so much. I probably could use it more. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people feel that way about it. But it's funny because like at the end of the day, it sounds like what matters more is the personal connection between you and other people, right? Like you can have the LinkedIn resources, but if you haven't built that relationship, then it's not necessarily going to work as well for you, or it's not going to work as hard for you, right? And you can build those relationships by reaching out to people and saying like, hey, I just want to talk about this for a second. Like, do you think I'm asking too much, or do you think I'm asking too little? Or like, it's okay to be open and unsure, because it builds those worker to worker relationships that we need in order to actually like precipitate the type of changes within industry on a broader scale that we're seeking to really get, so that we can have most companies, if not all companies, offer such a wide range of benefits.
And they're going to get there because the ones are going to burn out that are not competitive with the bigger ones.
Right.
Even if a big company is offering not the best benefits and a smaller company is offering better, that bigger company is not going to have the best talent. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have the best people working there. They're not going to breach all their goals. So that's such a big thing to really factor in. And yeah, I mean, the biggest thing anybody will tell you when it comes to recruiting, I'm not a software engineer. If I'm hiring a software engineer, a great thing to do would be to go to a meetup group in town for software engineers
Right.
and say, I want to learn more about it so I can have conversations with candidates. But hey, while I'm here, is anybody not working? Oh, you just got laid off? I have this great software engineer role. If
Mm-hmm.
you're in meetup groups in Peterborough, New Hampshire, anywhere you are, go to a meetup group and say, here's my resume. Does anybody know of anything? People want to help other people. Sometimes they're incentives. Sometimes companies, and the thing is this is talent acquisition, recruiters, coordinators, sourcers,
Mm-hmm.
those people don't get referral fees from companies
Right.
because that is their job to hire people. But I've worked at companies where it's, hey, we'll pay you $2,500 to help us fill a role. We'll give you $5,000 if you help us fill the top role. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always surprised that the people in accounting, the people in marketing are not just going on their LinkedIn and trying to find that person. That's an extra $5,000 to refer somebody from your own company. I've
Sure.
given trainings at my bigger companies I've worked for to say, here's how to leverage your LinkedIn network and say,
Right.
hey, we could look at 800 applicants, but if you have one person from your last company who you message and they say, oh, I just got laid off and
Yeah.
now we can hire them, you get $5,000 from it. Like that is referrals are such a big thing, and referrals in sense of anything, meeting people in a meetup group,
Mm-hmm.
meeting somebody in a forum, just having somebody who can kind of speak for you and your kind of skills is a very big thing.
Right. Yeah. Who you know. It's a it's
That's
a
yeah.
it's definitely a part of it. But it's what I think is good is that like you're actually vectoring in like this is starting to approach the like, yeah, but how do you actually like get to that people aspect and like identify just regular friends that you have, like, something that I've noticed as I'm reaching out to like old classmates and stuff like this while I'm doing this stuff, and we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about like, hey, Mikey, you went out into the world and you learned all this stuff and you like experienced all these different things, and now we're like talking about it from a perspective of like, okay, yeah, like we all come like we have this shared experience of growing up in Peterborough, New Hampshire, in this weird little bubble, and
Mm-hmm.
like what's, like, as we sort of explore this, it's interesting to rebuild those connections, because I'm finding that I can have these conversations with people. We were really approached like understanding ways that we can alter or affect our lives that will like cause great positive effect down the line,
I would say that's a big thing. That's a big thing, definitely. The college, like you said, your college network. Even 3, 4 years out of college, when I was looking for a new job, I would go back to my careers person at my college, because their job is not only to get seniors jobs out of college,
Mm-hmm.
their job is to help alumni forever. So
Yeah.
colleges, big or small, they love to help network and leverage their community.
Mm-hmm.
So even at 31, 10 years out of college, I can go on LinkedIn, and this is the best part. I can say I want to work for a company. It'll say 3 alumni work here. And I
Right.
can click on that and see the 3 alumni and say, hey, love living by the ocean. How have you been since college?
Yeah.
I see your company is hiring for somebody. And then they're going to bring me to their hiring manager, and their hiring manager is going to see, hey, this person does really well at this job and came from this college and this major. So I'm going to want to hire Mikey now too, because he comes from that exact same background. And I know that he can come in and hit the ground running. So
Right.
leveraging that kind of network is very, very big. You're not always going to find, I mean, like, how many people do you know are sound engineers that we graduate with? All of my best friends, we do the most opposite work imaginable. So, like, I
Right.
never have direct friends I can text or call up, but I might be able to post on Facebook and say, does anybody know anybody who knows a recruiter? And one of my friends, random or good friend on LinkedIn, might have a cousin that he can send the resume to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Posting on LinkedIn, it is a social network. One
Right.
huge tip: make sure you have a profile picture. If you don't
Yeah.
have a profile picture, nobody's going to think you're real. They're not going to message you. Have a profile picture. My header image is of Cinque Terre in Italy, where I went to a decade ago, a few
Mm-hmm.
times. And people reach out to me about that. And that kind of helps me like stand out and start a conversation.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
is a big thing, but post on LinkedIn. Like, if you're looking for a job, post on LinkedIn, maybe tag 3 or 4 people that you idolize on LinkedIn or that work at these big companies or your previous colleagues, and say, who do you know? Who can you help me connect with?
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is just that. It is used for networking, leveraging your connections and referrals. So like, really post on there. A neat fact: if you use an image, 70% of people, it's like there's a 70% greater chance people are going to read your post,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to get more popular if you use an image. So don't write need job, who knows of something. Post a picture of Keanu Reeves doing that whoa face and say, whoa,
Right.
I never knew how useful LinkedIn is. I just found 10 people who can help me find a job. Are there other people? Here are my skills.
Right.
People are going to go, oh, I love Keanu Reeves. I use that meme all the time. This guy's cool. I'm going to want to have a conversation with him. Like,
Yeah.
use it for that
Yeah.
social aspect.
Yeah, so you're kind of like you're leveraging that, like, yeah, like understand how to leverage meme culture a little bit in a way, like understand how to leverage
Yep.
like social network algorithms that, like, it sounds like LinkedIn really just operates much the same way as Facebook or like Twitter
100%. Yeah.
or Instagram, where you're just, it's the way it's going to aggregate things is much the same way. So yeah, it's like, that's a good point, is like, don't discount how much people are actually on this network, however much people may say it's a miserable place to be because it's like social networking for work, which I can totally
Sure.
understand,
Yeah.
like the perspective of it. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
there is a certain need for it nowadays, especially when we are living in COVID times and we're all locked up in our houses, and like, we got to rely on these less than favorable networks that, to help us get where we need to go. And and we can certainly, in the process, demand more transparency and all of that within the context of dealing with internet corporations, but also, don't reject the tool just because you disagree with the broader problem of the social networks themselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's easy to say, oh, delete your Facebook, delete your Twitter, delete all this, get off socials. I understand that perspective, but there's a purpose that a lot of it serves, frankly, and we have that choice of how much we want to put stock in it. And I think what I take away here from you in part is that, like, to think about it in terms of your actual real world connections and people that you really know. And like, yeah, when you're reaching out to somebody, remember that time that you were physically hanging out together. You know what I mean? Like, understand that, like, those actual life connections that you have, that it's not, look past the internet.
And it can be awkward. It can be awkward being like, we met once at a party, but I see you work for this company now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've reached out to people who graduated 5 years after me, but they work for a company I want to work for. And all I have to say is, you know, do you miss our college? I had a great time there. I love this building. And there's this a whole conversation that strikes up. And then they're
Right.
like, let me get your resume over to my people. And Facebook, Facebook is, you waste a lot of time on there and there's not a lot of meaningful stuff out of there, but there's also so many recruiting groups. I joined a couple Boston recruiting groups recently where people post jobs in there and people tell you things to look at.
Right.
There's a Facebook page called facebook.com groups free resume review. So as me, I'm not really a recruiter, so I don't look at resumes all day. So even I need help with my resume.
Mm-hmm.
I always need help with my resume. That is a Facebook group, free resume review, that you can upload your resume, and a ton of people are going to give you pointers and tricks and tips on your resume. So that's on Facebook, which, a lot of people think Facebook is, meaningless scrolling, but there are these good groups and there are these good things, and you can find jobs on Facebook. You can find all of these things. And LinkedIn, I'm a recruiter, so I'm on there all day. I would recommend everybody being on LinkedIn more often. Keep it in the background, respond to people. And if you just started a job and somebody reached out to you for another job, hit that connect button with them, keep their email, keep a virtual Rolodex of them, because you never know when your company is going to go through layoffs or when you're going to want to look for a new company. Don't, just disregard people. Connect with recruiters every day.
Right.
Connect with recruiters at these big companies. Maybe you're not ready, or any company, any dream company. Maybe you're not ready to work for that company yet, or you don't have the skills for that perfect role there.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with a recruiter and let them see what you are posting about. That's such a big thing too. For you on LinkedIn, you could post, every day about filmmaking and audio engineering and
Mm-hmm.
music. I've worked for food companies. So what I'll do is I'll post fun food memes and I'll post fun things that are happening in the food industry.
Right.
And hey, did you know that now there's this new innovative product that is now taking the time of how you test food from an hour to 10 minutes. I'm going to share these things because that's going to get me to kind of connect with the people who I'm going to want to hire or maybe be hired by.
Mm-hmm.
The more you're posting on LinkedIn, post every day.
Right.
Post things, because if a post goes viral on there, I've seen some people say, I'm looking for a job, was just laid off. If the right people see that, who have 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and they hit that like button,
it's just,
now anybody who follows them is going to see your post. They
right.
could hit share, they could post about you, but if they hit like or comment or anything, now that becomes a part of their activity as well, which is huge.
Yeah, no, and that's good to know, because I mean, it's like there might be differences on how much, like, how that affects things. Like, I don't know if Facebook bumps you because one person who has more followers liked your post instead of just any other person, but that is an interesting function of that particular that particular platform, that LinkedIn does do, like, a lot more like activity tracking in that sense, that they then share back out to folks. Like, I've seen that on my own, just in terms of the type of notifications that they send me. Like, they're very much so, like, actively trying to push what other people's, just like, what they're literally clicking on that site. Like, they're trying to tell you about it, which, at first, to me, it's kind of like, whoa, there's a lot of notifications, there's a lot of, like, stuff, yeah. Right? But
yeah,
if you're able to sort of step back from, like, the I hate the cacophony of social media thing for a minute, mm-hmm. and think about, all right, like, if this is a game, how do I play it? Like, that's actually advantageous, and I think what you're talking about here is a way to really leverage that, like, that feature, for yourself.
I would say, yeah, if on slide 9 of what I sent over, here's another cool, like, little tip that you can use on your LinkedIn. So when you go on your LinkedIn, you can see who's looked at your profile. You can see who's looked at your articles. You can see who's looked at any of your posts. So articles are actually like literal blog posts. And then there's things called posts, which is anything that I post on there, memes, pictures, whatever. But what you can do is you can go onto your LinkedIn and you can see who viewed your profile. Mm-hmm. I have 438 profiles in the last what is it, the last 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go on there and see all the people who have looked at me. So I can see, hey, there's a recruiter at this company who looked at me. Maybe they looked at my profile, but they didn't think I was the perfect candidate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now going to send them a message and say, hey, I saw you were looking. Is there anything that stood out? Was there anything I might have been lacking? Here's my resume,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to go, oh, I didn't see this on your LinkedIn that's on your resume. Let's get you in for an interview. You can
Sure.
see I've gone down 21% since the last week. Maybe I haven't been posting as much. Maybe, during April 9th when I had, that 60 number there, maybe I was posting more pictures. Maybe I was on here more. Maybe I was connecting and networking more. People who looked at my articles, post an article about something. And if somebody's like, hey, that's really cool. I've never thought of this that way. Reach out to them and say, thanks so much, get a conversation going, and then slip in there, do you know if anybody was hiring? They
Right.
now know that you know what you were talking about in that craft. Now, there's no reason that these people would ever, be like, why is he looking at me? Why is he talking to me?
Right.
It's they looked at your profile, look at their profile back and reach out and say, let's get a conversation going, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many. They say a recruiter looks at your resume for, I think it's 6 seconds or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which, you get a lot of resumes. You only have so much time to look at it. Sometimes you might not have listed something in your resume, but you have it on your LinkedIn or vice versa.
Right.
So, I mean, that is like such a good thing to make sure you mirror them, but also follow up and say, I know I don't have this on my resume.
But
I
it might be
just got this.
relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got this certification. Now would you take a look at me? And they're gonna
Sure.
go, oh, okay, yeah, it was missing before, but now I'm interested in that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, spend more time on LinkedIn than Facebook. It's so mobile. You can get in trouble for this, but a big tip that I would say is you can go on LinkedIn, type in recruiter, type in your area, type in your dream industry, dream companies you want to work at,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go down the list and just hit add, 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 and you can add a bunch of the people, and the next day your notifications will say 6 of them connected with you. Send them a message that next day.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it on your computer, it will say, do you want to add a personal note on there?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an extra step. On your phone, all you have to do is hit a plus sign,
Mm-hmm.
and you can add 100 people as your
Like that.
connections
Yeah.
in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, you are like waiting to go out the door, find 100 people, click on them, and they're recruiters. They're going to accept your request.
Right. And you might only get like 6-12% of that number,
So
but
that's
it's still better than nothing, and it took you how long to do it? And
few
like,
seconds. Yeah.
yeah, and it's yeah, there's like, I think it's just important for people to remember that like a job search is not just like trolling Craigslist every day or waiting
Yeah.
for unemployment to get back to you with their like official job search list or
Yeah.
like
3 jobs that don't relate to what you're looking for. They
right.
don't know you. You know yourself better. And another hint, LinkedIn and Indeed have an easy apply,
Mm-hmm.
which is great in the grocery store line. It's great laying in bed at night. Quick, easy apply. Boom, your name is over to that company.
Yep.
Don't just do that. Because it's an easy apply, hundreds of other people are going to be applying as well, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to do.
And
Go
that's
on
a
the website, go to the careers page, apply, connect with the recruiter. When a job is posting on LinkedIn, it will say recruiter/job poster sometimes.
mm-hmm.
Find that person and request to connect with them.
Right.
Really put yourself in their like in front of them.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
I think
most
that's where like
important
the
thing.
cover letter comes in too, right? That like tailored cover letter, like don't don't just write one cover letter and then call it a day and upload it to like your digital CV
Mm-hmm.
and and that's that. Like I mean, I myself have gone through processes where like every single time I was applying for a new job, I literally sat down and wrote a new 3 paragraph letter to them. You know,
That's big.
like 3 to 5 paragraph letter. It's like that's and maybe it got me somewhere, maybe it didn't. Like my own job search stuff, it's like with what I'm looking for, like yeah, I think I agree with you that I'm pretty picky myself about what I'm
Yeah, it's not a
seeking.
bad thing. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, because
yeah,
again, to go back to like value your own labor. Don't let the system of prioritizing productivity over the happiness of the worker deter you from demanding happiness for yourself, because we do actually have that right and we should be entitled to it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like there's an empowerment there done with like, yeah, you got to do a little bit more work, but it's also thinking about like, well, how worth it is it for me to do a little bit of extra work now to really try and get a job that's going to mean something to me, that I'm going to feel comfortable with, that I'm going to want to stay with, that I know will respect me or care for me, right? Like that's an important thing, and it's worth it to take that extra moment to write that letter, to tailor your stuff. Don't, like, don't just use the functions that they hand you, because I'm sure, as you're pointing out, recruiters will hit a point where they're like, I know this is what this person is doing. I know they just hit easy apply to like 6 jobs, and like, because they only wanted to spend 5 minutes on a job hunt today, and like, okay, that's fair, but like, it also just, there's a lot of passive messages that get sent in how you go about applying for a job that will indicate certain things to the, the recruiter or the sourcer or the hiring manager or whatever, right? Like all those people, they may have a different role in the process, but it's like they're all going to interpret certain actions in a more abstract way.
A lot of people treat a cover letter like Mad Libs, where they just change the "to whom it concerns" to the name of the hiring manager, recruiter. You said you cater different paragraphs each time. That's how it should be.
Right.
It shouldn't just be, just changing the name of the person and send it over. And also, it's such a quality over quantity thing. You can apply for 1,000 jobs in a day, but you could also apply for 4 jobs and spend an hour on each one. Applying on the website, which I know the age old joke of that is, I just upload my resume. Why do I need to type it all in again? I know that can be a hassle. I totally get that, but you're going to have to apply legally for the role eventually anyway. So, do that, get in their system, talk with their recruiters, talk with people you may know at that company, research the company. That's such a big thing too. On Glassdoor, you can go on and you can see what companies ask when you're interviewing with them. So like, that's a huge thing. If you're interviewing with a company next week, see what their 10 questions are and practice with your roommate, your significant other. Like, research the company, research the role, because if you don't know those answers, you're not going to get the job. That's where a little research, online can definitely come in handy if you don't know somebody there. But yeah, that's such a big thing, is quality over quantity. And, a big thing too is there's talent communities. So if you want to work for a company and they don't have anything for you right now, find out if they have a talent community and join it. Say, here's the roles that I want. And as soon as a role opens at that company, you will be automatically emailed and they'll say, hey, we have this role. And you'll be one of the first people to apply. Being one of the first to apply can be a really big thing. That definitely can be really strong as that first person, because I know if I'm working on a role and I see one person apply for it and they're great, then I might be able to just close that role tomorrow. I might be able to just go, okay, like that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Some companies, they want to see 15 people before they make a hire. Some people are just like, this person's great. So definitely be proactive. That's definitely a big thing that I would say. And another big tip is, a lot of people are not on Indeed as job searchers. They think it's just LinkedIn or nothing. Definitely be on Indeed. Indeed is so big because some companies, they don't have LinkedIn Recruiter. So they just have LinkedIn. And people can't really send you messages and easily connect with you.
Right.
Some people's companies just have a budget that went to LinkedIn 10 years ago, or Indeed 10 years ago, and now they're still only using Indeed. Indeed's very easy to sign up for. Update your resume every few days. That's a big thing I say, because when I'm looking for somebody on Indeed, I'll type in the title, I'll type in the area, and then I hit most recently updated. Because I don't want to reach out to somebody 3 years ago who might have moved jobs or now is a manager and I'm only reaching out for a leader role. I want to reach out to the person who updated their resume yesterday, because they are going to get back to me the minute I send them a message, because I know that they're looking.
They're like engaged right now. Yeah.
That is a big thing. LinkedIn, change your LinkedIn to open it to new opportunities. A nice thing about that is if you're at a company and you don't want them to know that you are trying to leave that company, you can say on LinkedIn, you're open to new opportunities, and nobody at your company is going to see that. So that's such a cool thing that LinkedIn does. And now if I'm a recruiter and I have 500 people in a result search, I'm going to say open to new opportunities. And then I'm going to look at the 14 people out of those 500. And those are the first 14 people that I message. Put in your title that you're looking for a new job. Type in the title you want, because when you type in the desired title, when I search for somebody, you're going to be one of the first people that pull up because of that keyword search.
Yeah.
Another big thing too is so many things are spammy these days. I get that. You get so much spam in your email and phone. As a sourcer, I'm good at finding people's phone numbers and emails, but I'm not always perfect at it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't send you an Indeed message because I ran out of messages as a recruiter, or I can't send you a LinkedIn message for some reason, I don't know how else to really get in contact with you. If you are serious about finding a job, put your email address in the open on LinkedIn.
Right.
Because I don't want to wait 4 days for you to get my request and connect and then accept, and then I get your email. I want to send you an email today on Indeed.
Right.
Make your email like public on there. Because
Right.
those, so many times I probably had a perfect candidate who might have been interested, but the
you
only
couldn't get in
emails I
touch.
could find were the wrong emails.
Yeah.
So I never got in touch with that person because they weren't public about their contact. Don't put your
Yeah.
phone. Don't put your phone. Put your email definitely.
Mhm.
And if phone, you can always say texts are welcomed. You know,
Right.
I'm open to hearing about jobs through text.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, that's like, I feel like we covered a lot just there. That was definitely like that's some, it's heady stuff, man. Like, and
Yeah.
I think this is all really important for people to know. So I mean, like, I guess like last question for you,
Yeah.
as we sort of wrap up here, how have you been not staying not bored during COVID? What's been like what are some shows, some books, like music, anything? What's keeping you going, man?
This could be like a whole other podcast.
I know, and we'll have to have you back on to do it again soon.
Just for that.
Yeah.
So I like writing screenplays. So I like reading screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought Get Out, the screenplay by Jordan Peele.
Oh, nice.
And it comes with pictures in it. It comes with deleted scenes. Comes with, you know, the director's notes and things like that. I like screenplays. I'm not a big reader. Like,
Sure.
if I read, I want it to be like a book that's done in a day. I want to read a non-linear thing or a biography maybe of somebody. So I love reading screenplays. I've had Wet Hot American Summer on my bookshelf for a while. That has a bunch of notes too from the directors.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's been big for me. But
that's
TV
an all-time
shows,
favorite. Like, I love that movie.
I've been following those guys forever. Every
Yeah.
movie or show any of them touch, I got to see it. But yeah, I would say we watch a lot of garbage TV right now. We're on season 4 of 90 Day Fiance. So that is some. I complain about reality TV. All I do is I say the Kardashians ruined everything. I say, you know, reality TV and the Jersey Shore and how these people making more money in an episode than you and I will ever make in our lifetime combined. You know, like I always say, but sometimes you just have to watch meaningless TV.
Right.
I mean, you have to watch reality TV. It makes you feel better about yourself. That's the psychological reason why people watch reality TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then for movies, what we watched, I See You is a new horror movie that just came out.
Okay.
It's one of the best horror movies I've seen in a long time.
Interesting.
It's just twists and turns the whole movie. You never know what's coming. I think it's Helen Hunt who's in that.
Okay.
Definitely recommend that.
Did you see Midsommar by any chance?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Okay, so I would say this. I thought Get Out was like the best thing ever done. I've been following Jordan Peele my whole life since Bad TV.
Right.
And then everybody went and saw Us. And they went, Us wasn't good because it wasn't Get Out.
Right.
And I was like, but it was good and it was different. It's not as good. But you can't compare and say I didn't like it because I'm still used to Get Out. I feel that way about Midsommar. I thought Hereditary was one of the greatest things. I love the ending. I love Toni Collette in horror movies.
Right.
I thought Hereditary was great. The other problem I had with Midsommar was this, is I watch every movie on the top 10 banned horror movies, Eli Roth's Green Inferno. I watch the movies where people are throwing up and passing out in the theaters because of how graphic it is. Like, I love horror movies more than anything. I was raised on them. So Midsommar, all of the reviews were like, this movie had people passing out. People had to go to the hospital because their heart stopped during it.
Sure.
And then you go and see it, and there's
you
like
just didn't have that impact.
It was one intense graphic scene, but it's a beautiful film. Beautiful. I mean, it's one of the first horror movies done in complete daylight.
Right.
You know, it's filmed in Europe. It's beautiful. The ending, I mean, like, there's a lot that I did like to it, but I also built myself up so much going into it that I was a little bit let down. I want to watch it again. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know if I loved or hated the ending. I'm still kind of torn between it. But it's got a great cast too. I mean, it's a great cast, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just like I'll watch any. I'm waiting for Antlers. Antlers is the high anticipated horror movie of this year.
Okay. I'll
I
have to
didn't
look
like The
into it.
Lodge. I thought The Lodge was pretty boring.
Okay.
That was the other kind of anticipated one. King of Staten Island, the Pete Davidson movie. Did you see it?
No, no, I haven't. I feel
It's
like I've heard about it, but I don't know if I've seen it. What is it available on streaming networks right now?
I think it's like $20 on Amazon Prime.
Okay, so it's
I
still a
go
little
to
steep,
movies
but
all the time when the theaters are open,
yeah.
so I can justify spending $20 for a theater movie on my TV.
Yeah, sure.
The,
Sure.
the King of Staten Island, I would say, is like an almost perfect movie.
Okay.
It's a beautiful film. If you follow Pete Davidson, if you've followed him through his SNL, it's a pretty much a biopic done by him and Judd Apatow. I
Interesting.
mean, it's very relative to his life. Bill Burr is in it. I think his name's Moises Arises or something like that. He's a big indie actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's like every comedian pops up in it. If you were big into comedy, you know, there's one scene where something random happens. And you're like, hey, that's that comedian. She had like one great line this
Right.
movie. And it's just like a heartfelt movie. And I love dramedy. I'm
Sure.
going back and rewatching Scrubs so I can listen to the Scrubs podcast. Like
Yeah.
I love a movie where I can laugh and feel things at the same time, and that's what that movie was.
Yeah. Yeah. One show that I've been like really vibing on lately is What We Do in the Shadows.
Best show on television right now.
Yeah,
hands down.
I just like I can't recommend it
Hands
enough. Like it's so
Yeah,
good.
there's nothing funnier. There's nothing smarter. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did see the movie. I did see the movie.
I was upset because when the show came out, you're like, Jermaine's not in it. How do you say the other guy's name? Taidi?
Guy
Guy from Jojo Rabbit.
Shoot. In the actual in the movie version, correct?
Yeah, because they both direct, they produce the TV show. They're both in
Right.
the episode with the Vampire Councils.
Yes. Yeah. Taika Waititi, I believe, is the
Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, like, I was a little upset when I knew the show wasn't going to have them in front of the camera. I mean, Rhys Darby playing the werewolf leader in the movie, he's not the werewolf leader in the show, but the whole entire cast is just as good. I mean, like, it's the same thing as the movie. It might be even better in the movie, and it's just like I don't know, the juxtapositions in it. Just that scene right there. We call it creepy paper. Like, we love this show. I watched the whole first season by myself. The second season was about to come out, and you know, me and my wife have this thing where we say, I want you to watch this, and the other person can't say, I'm not going to, let's watch something else. Like, it's like, I don't care if you think you're going to hate this, you have to try this.
Sure.
She watched the first episode with no interest in it, and we binged the whole first season in a day, and we have not missed any of the second season. I mean,
it's gold. Yeah. Well, and something I really liked about the first season too is the way that they tied it over to the film. Like, I think at the end of the first season, it's like they do like the vampire council, and you've got like famous people that are vampires, like Chloe Sevigny is there, and like it's just like,
and you have the original guys from
right. Yeah. So it links back over. Yeah, it's a great show.
The scene with the, what was that? The Bada Binga book when they went out to the club.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
Babadook, but in like Staten Island. Yeah, I mean, it's and Colin Robertson is probably one of the greatest characters of television.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The energy vampire thing is just like beyond. So
the episode with Vanessa Bayer, like, that was the role that Vanessa Bayer was born to play. Was his love interest and the other, you know, and like, it's so relatable. And, like, that scene where he's like at the office, everybody knows an energy, and he says that, and you're just like, the show is just so relatable, and it's so crazy, and like, to me it's kind of like a Pixar movie. Pixar, the tagline, the basic synopsis of a Pixar movie is the most far-fetched, ridiculous thing you've ever heard.
Yeah,
people come into Pixar and they go, that's so stupid, and then somebody writes it and it's the most beautiful movie ever. Like, What We Do in the Shadows, without these people behind it, if any random person pitched that idea, people would go, what is this?
Right.
But the brilliance of these guys is just like, Yeah, I mean Haley Joel Osment.
Oh yeah,
He's hosting a panel with all of them at like a Comic-Con convention
Oh
coming up.
yeah. Yeah, his
Yeah,
appearance on that was great. Yeah, that was
yeah,
super funny. And
highly
like
recommend it.
yeah. The other one that I saw that recently, I don't like. I just finished season 3 of it, and it's like I like it because it's in these like. There's a few series coming out right now that are like they cap it at a trilogy, like they don't go beyond 3 seasons on
Smart,
purpose. Like I
smart.
know that Dark just came out with their 3rd season, which was another
Okay.
show that I really liked a lot.
Yeah,
But Legion, it's the
it's on
Noah.
my list.
Oh man, I
That and
cannot
Devs.
recommend.
That and Devs are on my list.
Yeah. Legion
Yeah.
is a great show that I would recommend to people in terms of just like artistically speaking, it's beautiful. Like it's very very like captivating. It's terrifying. It's like it's the best Marvel thing that I've seen. Period. I would put it
I
above
know.
Doctor
That's what
Strange
I've heard.
even. Like
Really? I can't
yeah.
wait for the Doctor Strange sequel. It's a horror
Yeah.
sequel of Doctor Strange.
And
You
I
can't
really
beat
liked
that.
Doctor Strange. You know, like I have now. Granted, I haven't seen like Infinity War or any of that because I just don't care.
Yeah.
But
They're fun. They're
yeah,
fun.
yeah, that's what I
all
hear.
would say.
But
Yeah.
but I did enjoy watching Doctor Strange because I saw, you know, I like Mads Mikkelsen a lot. I thought that, you know, like it's a good cast.
Yeah.
But the thing for me about Legion was it had all of that like beautiful abstraction that Doctor Strange has, but it doesn't have like the shiny Hollywood action flick component. Like it's very much so a story about mental health. Like
Interesting.
like really like it's a deep introspection on like our value as people and how we deal with mental illness and what that means for different people. And it's just like it's a great example of having like a super flawed main character, but again it's like they incorporate all of this incredibly like wild abstraction stuff that like you just don't usually see in TV. And then again it's like the writing itself is just top notch because it's Noah Hawley who did Fargo, you know what I mean? So it's like
I'm very behind on the Fargo show.
yeah,
I made it for a season or two.
I think I saw the first 2 seasons. I don't know if they've kept up with it. I'd have to go back and check in, but I know it's like it's another one of my favorites that I really love the way that show is done. And Legion has that kind of like elegant pacing to it. You know what I mean? So that's always now that the whole thing is up and you can binge like the series in total, I can't recommend it enough. Like it's so good.
It's on the list and has been. I also started watching The Sopranos for the first time. I'm on season 2.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta get into that myself. I've heard it's like,
great.
yeah, that's what I hear.
It's fun. I mean, they even analyze this in the show, but it's analyzed this as a non-comedy TV show. I mean, it's like such an interesting premise. I remember years ago, I told my parents I was going to write a movie about a guy who interns with the mafia, and they were like, "It's already been done with Matthew Broderick," and I was like, "Oh, like." That premise I thought was so creative, and it's like, you know, The Sopranos. You just watch this tough guy go to therapy, and it's something that is just so original. And I mean, yeah,
it's so simple,
great.
but yeah.
We watched all of season 5 of Queer Eye in probably a day or two.
Yeah. I have to catch up on the most recent set, but it's definitely been like I've been jamming my head full of documentaries lately. If I'm honest, like we
need to get caught up on docs. Jen's been watching a couple. I need to get caught up on that. I mean, there's just so much these days.
Yeah, no, there really is. Like I just finished up Time, the Khalif Browder story, which was just like rough, but like I mean, I can't recommend people watch it enough though. At the same time, you know, it's like it's really
I need
important.
Recommendations, so whatever else you have.
Time, the Khalif Browder story was awesome. I started watching Oliver Stone's what is it, like Untold History of the United States or whatever, which is like, you know, Oliver Stone can be kind of a goober at times, but he does he does kind of talk about some perspective. You know, like I watched like last night I watched the World War II one that they had, and that's like you know, like I thought it was really interesting how he points out that like, yeah, ultimately, like we got to give credit to the fact that Stalin and the Soviet Union did the most of the legwork in crushing the European half of the World War II fight. So it's like, you know, as much as, you know, America may be an incredibly anti-communist state, like he did it. I felt like it was a relatively honest telling of that period of time, and sort of that it, in a way that counters the sort of like, you know, America as heroes perspective of World War II. So it's like that was good. And I'm so with that tone, you know, he spends a lot of time talking about Henry Wallace, which I thought was interesting to like spend to give so much attention to like a pretty like incredibly progressive candidate that we, you know, like what with Harry Truman, we totally forget about Henry Wallace a lot of times, except for like the more progressive and socialist left, you know, that's he's obviously a hero there. But it's like, yeah, it's just interesting stuff, man. Like those documentaries I found to be really good. I mean, I checked out Athlete A, which was sort of like the assessment of what happened with Larry Nassar and USA Gymnastics.
Yeah, my wife just watched that one.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I think like all this stuff is really important for us to understand, like the way that these big institutions, whether they're companies or they're like organizations like USA Gymnastics, or like it's, you know, the cash bail system, or you know, Rikers, like the criminal justice system, the prison system, all of that stuff, like what you get out of the Khalif Browder story, like you know, historical revisionism, like what I've been catching in you know, Untold History, which is like, you know, and there's a lot of like, you know, a book I always recommend to people is The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, which goes way back, like all the way into the 1400s, and says, no, here's like the actual origin of this country. Here's the amount of slaughter that we engaged in order to get what we've got. Here's like the racist foundations of things that like, this is why we, you know, and this is like written by a guy who literally, you know, dropped bombs, you know, like he flew a plane and dropped bombs. So it's like, it's, you know, I think it's like there's a lot of good documentary stuff. And then I always recommend to people, go watch I think 13th, 15th.
Yeah, that's on our list. Yeah, it's so interesting too that like social media, you can really watch these mini documentaries and learn so much. I mean, like social media is finally being used for good again, where these hashtags are trending and actually getting things done, which is the most interesting thing. And like,
Yeah.
you can watch a 6-minute video on Facebook and learn something about something that happened to somebody, which makes you want to, you know, be more progressive and speak up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the time where social media, like, I think this is the most interesting part of history as of like social media, is like all of the influencers have all kind of started to disappear because they can't travel right now.
Right.
And now you have all of these activists coming in and sharing videos and hashtag trending different topics.
Yeah.
And like now these are the ones that are getting millions of likes and views. And like, you know, we're learning that influencers telling us things like live, laugh, and love are not the things that we should be following. We should be, you know, following these kind of activists because, you know, like right now it's COVID. My wife is pregnant. We can't really go out and march. We can't really go out in big crowds and do things. But there are things that you can do on social media and signing the petitions and sharing things and educating yourselves. Like there's other things that you can do. You know, there's so many different ways that you can take action, which I think is really interesting because we didn't, you know, you don't have this back in the 1900s.
Right.
You couldn't, you know, it was either do this or do nothing. And now you have all these different kind of outlets, which is cool.
And it's all, and I, you know, like a note to end on is sort of like, this is all readily accessible to us, you know, like, I mean, if you've got a hookup to the internet, like you don't have to read it necessarily. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of good content in podcasts, a lot of good content on YouTube or Twitch or documentaries on Netflix that it's out there. And like, and that you don't just have to consume documentaries, that there are totally shows and other narrative, more cinematic things that can teach you about dynamics that are tough to deal with. You know, I mean, like I said, I think people like, I learn a lot of introspection watching a show like Legion because it, you know, there's a lot of serious confrontation with intense mental illness, and it helps me to sort of work through my own stuff and like try and address certain questions that I might be having a hard time with. That we can use those narratives and we can use this sort of creative outlet to help understand ourselves better.
You got to find what works for you. I mean, for me, I love podcasts. I learn so much through podcasts because I take my dog for a long walk and I listen to a podcast. I don't sit down with the book on my patio, but podcasts are big for me. Or even if it's not a documentary, it can still be a very realistic show with the facts in there, but
Right.
they can't call it a documentary because it's staged, or it's a newer
Yeah.
cast, or but it's still that kind of educational piece to it, which is
Mm-hmm.
cool. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah,
Well,
I would say have people connect with me on LinkedIn.
yes, please.
I
Yeah.
have my
So
articles on there.
yep, and we've got
I
your LinkedIn in the description of this video. So if people want to reach out to Mikey and try and sort of build those connections, he's open to it, and you can follow it right through. And yeah, I just man, it was so good to have you on and just catch up and talk about all this stuff. And it's good to see
I'm
you
very
too.
passionate. Yeah, you too. And I'll be moving back soon, so we could do
Yeah,
one of
I
these in
know.
person.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really looking
when
forward
the
to
world
it.
settles down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
looking forward to meeting your kid. Like, this
yeah.
is gonna be wild, dude.
We got old.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing this with my network and just connecting with new people.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much
Yeah,
for coming on and talking, and we'll catch up soon, dude.
yeah, sounds
Awesome.
good.
Yeah, take care, man.
Hey, you too.
All right, bye. All right, everybody. So there was a good friend of mine from back in high school, Mikey Weil, coming on talking about a whole slew of stuff, and it was, it's good to catch up. It's good to just sort of relate. It's good for us to learn from each other. Always good vibes. This is that moment in the show when I do the please support us on Patreon. Please follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the little bell for your notifications so that you can get a heads up whenever we go live like this. Typically what I'm trying to do right now, Wednesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays we got the local show. Thursdays we got the live show. Granted, they're both live shows, so I don't know exactly what the distinction is, other than on the local show I try to stay more hyper focused on exactly what's happening in this community. On the live show, I'm willing to talk about more state stuff, more national stuff. So if you want to understand why I'm making that separation as I go about doing these streams, that's where it's at, right? I will probably try and introduce a third stream at some point. That's a little less interview based and a little bit more analysis based. I've been doing a little bit less of that content lately, partly because I've just been trying to sort of circle the wagons on it, but also because I know that ultimately it's just more engaging to have somebody on to talk about stuff with. So, and maybe part of those analysis will be getting together some more recurring guests to come back and talk. It's like a lot of the people that I've had on lately, I want to have them back on. And I want to, like maybe we do co-analysis for some of those topics. And there's other stuff that I want to get into too. I really want to get deep on, the intricacies of actually dealing with the mental health crisis right now, because as we go to deal with defunding, as we go to deal with the activist stuff that we're approaching as a vector here in Peterborough, New Hampshire, right? I'm talking very, very specifically, okay? We gotta grapple with the mental health aspect of it. I'm not trying to co-opt, as I would be concerned people would suggest. But again, it's like what Heather and I were talking about yesterday. Okay, you simply cannot expect to resolve the identity, race, misogyny. You can't expect to deal with any of that until you start to deal with some of the basic necessities, right? Those material results, like having adequate mental health services. You're not gonna be able to attack those things until you're able to solve the systemic causes of those things. So it's important for folks to remember that framing, to try and temper yourselves. I know that it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotions of it and the identity of it, but remember what we're out here to do. Remember the mission. Remember the work that actually needs to get done. So with that, I'm going to cap the show today. Thanks everybody so much for tuning in. It was a great time, and we'll catch up soon. All right, take care, y'all.